My name is Herb. I'm an alcoholic. Welcome to our Big Book 12-step workshop. Please join me in prayer. God, please set aside everything I think I know about myself, my unmanageability, the 12 steps in you, for an open mind and a new experience with myself, my unmanageability, the 12 steps, and especially you. Please join me in the serenity prayer. God, grant me the serenity to accept the things that cannot change, courage to change the things I can, and wisdom to know the difference. Well, here we are, again reminded as to why we are here. We have experienced serial suffering in our lives, and maybe even just before we got to this workshop, and maybe continued. And we're trying to identify the source of the serial suffering so that we can get free. In step one, we looked at the bondage of addiction. We spent quite a bit of time looking at that, and then discovered when we went to the second half of the first step that addiction is a problem. It just wasn't the problem. And many of us who have long-term abstinence from whatever plagues us are restless, irritable, and discontent, despite all of the help we get, the community we live in, the tools that we employ or don't, and the invitations that we have and sometimes cooperate with. Unmanageability, the bondage of self. And so we've begun looking at power in step two. Bill calls it a rocket launch. We get into the rocket as a commitment to take some action and some direction, specifically out of the big book, as at least I understand it and I've experienced it. Rocketed into a fourth dimension. That is the material. We're in the material dimension, 3 dimensions, height, width, and depth, and we're rocketed into the fourth dimension, that immaterial dimension, the world of the spirit, Bill calls it. You can call it anything you want. It's certainly the world of freedom. Freedom from addiction, that's the guarantee, and freedom from unmanageability, that's the promise. Empowerment, a spiritual shield against our addiction. We commit to the work of the steps when we take step 3. We make that decision to turn, and you've been warned and or at least given the vision and perspective and hope that not only will you turn, but you will be turned. And I hope you're hearing that. Yes, you're going to do a lot of work, and as a result of that, you're going to have a lot of experience, some significant change, some significant consciousness. But the results of the work that you do, and it's 100% my experience personally, as well as with the people I've taken through individually, as well as the group, that the outcome is disproportionately larger than our input. That's the spiritual math I talk about. And we get launched into a second stage, identifying and removing the obstacles in us, primarily with step 4. We took a long time with step 4, inventory, looking at the instincts gone awry, instincts that turn into emotions, emotions that turn into a life of suffering. And we get underneath that to take a look at the exact nature, the underlying causes and conditions. And as in steps 1, 2, and 3, again, we're confronted by the book that we're powerless under each step and under each component of each step. And we get a prayer in the resentment for freedom, and we get a prayer in the fear for freedom, and we get a prayer in the sex inventory for knowledge and freedom. And we take a look at step 6, making a list of the behaviors that come out of the inclinations, seeing that distinction, powerful distinction. I have inclinations over which I'm powerless, but I have behavior over which I'm responsible. And we come to step 7, which is in fact to take a look at and to accept our powerlessness by a prayer. It's the introduction to the next stage, of course, a close to this particular stage, stage 2, which was opened with a prayer, the 3rd step prayer. And each of you have taken a look at the prayer in the big book. Perhaps some of you have, in fact, crafted your own, primarily just to get underneath the one in the book so that we understand it. I would like to have a little dialogue with you now about step 6 and 7. I don't want to talk about any other step at this juncture. I want to talk about 6 and 7. If you have any feedback, any questions, if you have a 7-step prayer that you've crafted that for whatever reason you'd like to share with us, it's always inspirational to hear other people's aspirations. And then I'll invite you to pray together the 7-step prayer from the big book. And then we'll move on to begin looking at the suggestions from the big book on step 8 and 9. Step 8 tonight, and maybe next week or the week after, beginning to look at step 9, but I'll make more comments about that later.
Hi, I actually had more of a question, and that's if you could discuss the Enneagram. I don't remember going over that last year, and it is in the Way of Life documents.
Yeah.
And some people don't believe in the Enneagram, but I don't actually really know anything about it. So
well, there's nothing to believe in.
Okay.
There's nothing to believe in. It's a theory of personality study, and it's interesting. You can be impressed with it or not. You can be informed by it or not. It can be helpful or not. It's there, not because I want to teach anybody the Enneagram.
Okay.
But it was the source for me to look at a variety of personality defects, character defects, shortcomings. And a lot of people in my workshops had a little trouble getting specific with naming it. So I thought this would be a good source for people to at least look at some names to see. It's not scientific at all. Now, my personal approach to the Enneagram, it's one of the better personality theories I've ever encountered, and I've had an interest in it for over 50 years, personality theories. and it's accurate. I mean, from my standpoint, it's accurate and it's revealing. It comes at a particular viewpoint. It's looking for shadows.
Yes.
It's not looking for assets. It's looking for liabilities in us. And it's built on the way that I approach the fourth step. And maybe Bill does too, probably not as consciously as I'm doing it, where he says in the 12 and 12, instincts gone awry, and our instincts are fight, flight, and freeze, anger, fear, and dishonesty. And those essentially are the three source elements in the Enneagram in the study of the personality. So for those reasons, I think it's valid to put it in there. And it's a sort of light touch suggestion that if somebody wants to pursue understanding behavior, understanding personality a little bit more, that they might want to take a look at an introductory book on the Enneagram. It was very helpful to me to see that people are built differently. I mean, sure, you know that intellectually. I have a graduate education in psychology, so I've studied a variety, but this particular study of or discipline and theory on personality was, it really helped precipitate in me the experience and the acceptance that people are just different structurally. They really do come from a dominant part of their brain functioning to either react with anger, to react with fear, or to react with dishonesty. We would translate that today into shame. And that was very helpful to me. Whether it's helpful to you or not, the purpose of it, though, going all the way back to my initial comments, is to give people sort of a roster of words to try to identify the feelings that they have about their character defects.
So, for example, one thing that came out for me and for many, many people who were doing the step 4 resentment worksheets was being unrealistic.
Yeah.
So it's, to me, that encompasses so many different categories.
Sure.
So would you kind of want to look at the source of that unrealism? In other words, is the source coming from fear or shame or anger?
Yeah, I've not thought it through, so it's a great question. I don't want to speculate on it spontaneously, but that's part of denial, so that's part of dishonesty, so that might fit there, just bubbling up in my spontaneous response. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
All right, thanks.
I wanted to start by sharing my gratitude to everybody here and to you, Herb. I finished my 4th step and my 5th step.
Oh,
yeah.
All right.
Yeah, very,
wow.
very, I mean, I took that hour, even more so an hour after, and, went on a beautiful walk and just, it was incredible. I still feel incredible. It was like pulling teeth for my sponsor when she was having me do the work. I just couldn't do it, and I was unaware of my perfectionism. And that's when she suggested that I take your workshop, and I made the commitment and I did it. I'm here now, and it's been the best thing that's ever happened to me. And so I just want to say thank you to you and to everybody else. So I've been working on my character defects, and I just wrote down my list so far. I haven't really gotten to the workshop yet. So I was kind of here just in this moment, wanted to share my gratitude, and I'll just read it off real quick. And I definitely, number 1, I have perfectionism down, and I'm codependent, because I saw, dependent, and I've been reading about it, but codependent, that's a character defect, right?
Well, yes, it's not an asset. Sure, why not? Yeah.
Yeah. And this is what I wanted to ask you, actually. I've evolved, and I feel like I've changed so much in such a positive light the past few months, that as I'm going through these character defects and, praying and asking God to reveal them to me, some of them that I've come across, I feel like that's ultimately was a character defect, but I don't feel like over the past couple months that I have them anymore, like have certain ones.
Yeah.
And that they've actually just been removed just by doing this work and just being in the, and it's been pretty powerful, but I just didn't know if I should still write them down. If I'm, maybe it's kind of like when I was doing my 4-step, if I'm not feeling it, if I don't feel like I'm doing it, then, but I have a perfectionism and I procrastination, dishonest, envious, fear-based, insecure, defensive, passive, image conscious, self-pity, self-loathing, and obsessive, which I can see how now that I don't have the bottle set down where my obsessiveness comes out in so many other avenues of my life right now. I did start perfectionism, and I did put behavior of it, like overthinking, overanalyzing, doubting myself, which causes procrastination. And then I put this is nothing to benefit, no payoff. And then I put the opposite, like being in the moment. And I don't know why this came out to me, but I feel like the opposite behavior like would be feeling freedom from dissection. I don't know why that came
Freedom
out.
from, oh yes, well,
Feeling freedom from like dissection.
Yeah. Well, dissection as part of the process of perfection, right?
Yeah, like dissection, like dissecting everything.
No, I get it. I
doubting,
get it.
yeah.
That very analytical, which is a gift until it becomes a curse.
Yeah, I know. I thought perfectionism was like completely something different. I didn't even know, but that came out and it just sounded right, felt right when I just thought of that.
But I'd like to go back to your worksheet and challenge you. There is a benefit. That's why you have it.
Perfectionism? Oh, there is.
Well, there's a delusion of a benefit. I'm not saying that there's a real benefit, but you are attempting to be perfect because it does something for you or to you.
You're right. I guess I did just think about it in a negative light. And that, if I didn't have my perfectionism, then there's a lot of things I wouldn't have learned. Maybe how to deal with it and go about it. If I didn't really have my perfectionism, probably would have started getting that step work done before you started your workshop. And who knows, I might not even be here in this workshop.
So that's an interesting rabbit hole, but it's not very productive. All right. So I'd want you to go back and say to yourself,
okay.
So I'm a perfectionist, and as a result of that, my behavior is procrastination. And the benefit to me is I don't make a mistake. I don't get accused of making a mistake. I can hold my sense of delusion that I am perfect.
Wow.
I don't know. I'm making it up as if I were doing it.
No. I mean, that's just, I love what you just did because, same with my sponsor, just talking about it opens up like doors for me.
Yeah.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah. Just poke at it a little bit. You have it because it protects you and makes you safe in some fashion. You believe it's a delusion, but you honestly believe it and don't see it as a lie, because that's why you hold it until you see it as a lie, and then you can release it like you're doing. You don't have to cross the T's and dot the I's because you're a human being and you're allowed to make mistakes, and your mistakes don't name you. That's huge. Your mistakes don't name you. They just say, oh, isn't that interesting? I made a mistake. I can correct that and learn from that.
That's great. Thank you. That's very great. I know. Thank you so much, Delusion.
Sure.
I really like that. I appreciate that. Now I have, that for the many more that I have to do. So thank you, Herb.
And don't spend a lot of time on it unless it's productive for you, if it's helpful. But bottom line on 6 and 7 is I'm powerless over my character defects, but I really want to and need to know what they are, and perhaps the dynamic underneath them. That's why that was a benefit to you, I hope, the conversation. And then move on now, and if you're going to do a personal 7-step, do that, and then engage in the beginning of step 8 when you feel that you've finished step 7, not that you're changed, but that you prayed the prayer sufficiently for yourself that you're moving on.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for.
But I finished my 4th step today. I'm in the middle of the 5th step, and I realized my character defect. And you know, instead of making my mistake again and again and again, I'm learning from what my character defects are, in other words. And I remember the first day that I came to this meeting, to the program, I was saying, should, could, I must have. And I remember literally that you said, can we put the should and could and do and all these on the side, and let's see what's going on.
Yeah.
And as now that I see I have put it away, it's just a miracle in my life, Herb. I just wanted to say it's a miracle.
Yeah.
It's a miracle. Thank you.
No, you're so welcome. I'm glad that it's beginning to help. And you know, the whole point of looking at the defects is that we want to identify those things that diminish the quality of our life. So I was asked, is perfectionism maybe, or no, codependence? What is codependence? Character defect? I don't know. Does it matter? Because what we're trying to do is we're trying to identify the things that diminish the quality of our life.
Exactly. Exactly.
Yeah. And I do encourage people, as Ali prompted me, to report in today or next week or next month, whenever you finish your 5th step. Just report in that you've done it and what potential experience that you share with us, the experience that you had leading up to it and finishing it. Just because I think it's an inspiration to the other people who are still working on their 4th step, and I'm expecting that to be quite a few people, and hopefully targeting finishing your 5th step by the end of the year. So.
I just have a question, Herb.
Yeah.
I'm sorry.
No.
How does it, for my own knowledge, I want to ask you, how do I get it out of the 4th and the 5th step? Is it because I'm putting everything on the paper and sharing it with myself and my sponsor? Is it?
Is your question, how do I know when I'm finished with the 4th and 5th step?
Yeah, how do I know where my character defects comes out?
Oh, well, then that's another project. After you finish your 5th step, you sit down and you make a list. Well, this is my instruction, to make a list of your character defects, spend an hour or so looking at that, and then pray the prayer and move on.
I did that. That's
okay.
what I did. That's what I just did today. And I realized, oh my God, these are my character defects.
Yeah.
And I learned from my mistakes, my own mistakes.
Yeah. But don't expect your character defects to melt away today, but do expect that they will diminish and melt away over time as you address your 8th and 9th step and finish your 9th step. Meanwhile, perhaps praying and holding yourself accountable for your character defects on a periodic basis with your step guide or sponsor.
Okay, thank you. Yeah, I just finished my 9th with my sponsor, and I finished with yours 5th today. So I'm moving on finally.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah. Wonderful. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
You bet.
First of all, Herb, thank you very much for you and Fred Luskin on Saturday. That was incredible.
Yeah. It
You know,
exceeded my expectations. Yes.
off the charts. I mean,
Mhm.
one more time, it's what my sponsor keeps saying. This is the education you get without graduation. And
I love it.
well, that's what he tells me. And what I want to do is read you my 7-step prayer.
Yes, please.
And then okay, God, I admit to you, I am a flawed sinner. Make me new in your likeness so I can be of maximum service to you and my fellow man. I humble myself before you and give you all my defects. Amen.
Yeah. You used the word sinner. And I've heard, I'm not sure it's true, but it sounds great, that in archery, sin, S-I-N, means missing the mark, which I just love that interpretation and definition. It's so much more gentle than you're going to go to hell.
Oh boy, missing the mark. That sure, sign me up for that one.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, because
Well,
we're human beings, we're imperfect, we can make corrective actions, and we learn by making mistakes. I mean, that's how we all learn usually, and takes a while.
well, I didn't know I was such a gossip until I
Hmm.
had to look at it.
Yeah.
And like you like to say, be where your feet are.
Yeah.
You know, when I took a look at it, I had an opportunity this last week where I could have gossiped about someone. But if you can't say something good about someone or it has no thing to lift somebody up, why do it?
Yeah.
And I found the longer I resisted it, the stronger I got.
Yeah.
And God became bigger and I became smaller. And it was powerful.
Well, and the answer to the question that you didn't ask, but you implied is, well, why do people gossip? It's to lift themselves up.
Exactly.
Yeah.
That was me.
Yeah.
And so I'm trying to change that behavior.
Yeah.
And I'm willing to give it to God. He can have it all.
Yeah.
So,
No, it's a spiritual intervention that we're looking for here. And that first invitation in step 6 is to be willing to be changed. Willing to be changed. That's the real theme of step 6, willing to be changed. And we're not going to change we're not going to necessarily change ourselves because we know better and we're doing better and we create healthy habits. Yeah, that's good. I mean, I'm not diminishing it. But step 6 says, despite all of that effort and knowledge and desire, we really can't get across the goal line. So are you willing to be changed? And like the 7th step says, to be made useful. Ooh, what does that mean? I mean, I would really like to control that one. Yeah.
well, what I like about you having us do our own prayer is I've said it, these 3rd and 7th steps from the book so many times in meetings, it becomes rote and it's gobbledygook. It doesn't mean anything.
Exactly. Yeah.
So, thank you.
And that's why I stress praying very intentionally, because the prayer is not about the words, it's about the intention behind the words. Why am I talking to God right now? What's the whole point of this? If in fact that's your model, I'm not putting my model on you, but that's of course the assumption of the big book. So thanks very much. And I also wanted to thank you for raising the vision of Fred Luskin. I said this last night, but some of you may not have been there. We had this workshop, 3-hour workshop on forgiveness on Saturday. I co-facilitated with Fred Luskin, who I don't have to introduce to you. Forgive for Good. And it went really well. As I say, it exceeded my expectations. And it must have gone really well, because Fred texted me after a half hour after the conclusion, very excited, saying we just have to get together again and soon. And so we made a date for February 12th. We will be reconvening on, he wants to do something on the nuts and bolts of forgiveness. So it should be, again, another opportunity for information without graduation.
I was at the forgiveness workshop on Saturday too, and it was unbelievable. And I feel like I'm still sitting in the glow of it. You know, a few days later, it put us in,
Yeah.
you know, call a milieu of prayer. I felt like that
Yes.
the last couple of days. And I did my 5th step yesterday
Nice.
with my sponsor. And I mean, there were many things that came up or occurred to me during or after. One of them was I remember you saying that when we were doing our resentments in the 3rd column and the 4th column, to make sure that it was a resentment that you currently had.
Right.
And so when I wrote it, that was true. And then when I was going over it with my sponsor yesterday, I felt like, well, this doesn't really bother me anymore. And some of them were like the really big ones.
Yeah.
And I was very surprised by that.
Nice. Pleasantly surprised.
Yes, pleasantly surprised. And then there were also, I mean, I spent a lot of time on the 4th step, and I was really diligent. I went to Catholic school, I can follow directions. But I was surprised yesterday that even though I had spent so much time and effort on it, I got new realizations yesterday as well, and even today. And I don't know if that would have happened anyway, but I felt that going to that forgiveness workshop, the timing was so perfect to what we were doing that I feel like it had an effect on that.
Yeah.
And like one of the things that shouldn't be a new concept, but forgiveness can be learned. Forgiveness can be taught.
Oh, absolutely.
I didn't know. I thought it was something I had to pray for. You know, it was so helpful for me. I just can't tell you how helpful it was.
Yeah. In fact, Fred Luskin, after he published his doctoral thesis back 30 years ago, was hired by the government of North Ireland to come over there and counsel with families whose family members had been murdered.
Mm-hmm.
And that was his initiation into real life forgiveness. So it's pretty dramatic, and we'll talk more about that in February.
Okay. You know, it's interesting that you said that, because I have the book, I've read the book, and I wanted to get it on, you know, the recording.
Yes.
Okay, so I went to look for it, and he's written a couple of books, of course, and the only one I could find was Forgive for Love. And I thought, okay, I'll get that one. I'll listen to that one. And I was listening it today, and he talked about the family members that in Northern Ireland in that book, that their relatives had been killed. So it's very powerful.
Yeah.
And I wanted to ask you, I think you said last week, I did my character defects. And I believe you said that rather than, you know, relieve me of these defects, to do them individually, to do the prayer for them individually. Is that?
Well, on a personal basis, that was my experience with it, that I had a specific one that was the major center point of all of them. And so the suggestion was that I pray specifically for its removal. So I began to pray specifically also for others' removal, just based on the success of that practice for that specific defect. So that is my practice now. I don't believe I recommended it as a practice for you all, unless you want to adopt it because it's helpful.
Sorry about my dog.
Okay. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, Herb. Thank you.
So I had an experience with my landlord. My landlord and I have been at odds for many years, and the son has been involved with the management of the property I live in, and they have been on my fourth step for years.
Mhm.
And I think I only did 1/3 and 4th with them after I had actually made a fair amount of traction with past fourth steps. But he's in town now, and we had a chance to have a meeting, and I initially was a little panicked about it. You know, the anxiety was very high, but I also have a therapist that I've been working with, and one of the things we uncovered was how angry I get when I feel dismissed
Mhm.
and not cared for. And that has been really quite the deep well of it with the mother landlord. And before I met with him, I prayed, I meditated, I said the 7th step prayer. I might have even just visualized like what I really wanted. And we had a really, really peaceful, productive meeting. And there was something that he also wanted to do, like this absurd removal of services. And I got like cranky and frustrated, and I was like, kind of in my old way of like trying to convince him that he's wrong and how absurd it is. And I think I just paused, and what came through was, I'm not going to agree to that.
Oh my God, that's so clean.
Oh, God.
Yeah, right.
No idea.
I do.
Maybe you do. I mean, oh my God. I mean, that in and of itself is a total miracle that I could feel that empowered and clear in myself and sure of myself and not take it personally. I think right before I said that, I realized, oh, he's trying to control, and I didn't personalize it. I mean, I'm cranky. I don't like to be controlled, but I didn't take it on as like, because I'm lesser than and I'm not worthy of,
the advantage. There's the advantage of the practice that you get from what we're doing here and showing up and listening to others. And you became conscious. That was it. I mean, you talk about simple. You became conscious so that you had a perspective and you saw the moving parts, and you used the term that I love, empowered. You were empowered to self-regulate.
Yeah. Well, in that conversation, it was the only time in the probably 8 different kind of topics we wanted to talk about where I got kind of a rise and I was getting really frustrated. And then I just sort of down-regulated.
Wonderful.
And I said, I'm not going to agree to that. And then I think I needed to use the restroom. And so in that, like, just couple minutes of pause, I was able to also come back and say, I'll consider what you said. And he really appreciated it. And through the whole conversation at the end, we had some nice, like, personal connections. He actually led in saying, the meeting went better than he had expected. And I said, me too. And I even then asked his permission, because I had written a piece about his father who passed a couple years ago, a month after he died. And I loved his father, who was, who built the property. And I shared this beautiful creative eulogy that I wrote. And it really is quite a miracle. And then it was great was that I had therapy earlier today, and I was telling her what had unfolded. She actually asked, and she actually was the one that like rerouted me to remember like what we had talked about with that piece of being dismissed and feeling not cared for, and what a trigger point those pieces are for me.
Yeah. Well, and the lesson learned is that you need to take care of yourself. You need not to dismiss yourself.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I'm totally behind in my step work, and I still am a glutton for overcommitting to things. So it'll get done when it gets done. But in the meanwhile, the sponsor I had when I entered this program was really not a fan when I started doing the fourth step. She still wanted to like name what my character defects are and like be the one that leads me and pressures me to get it done. And I just didn't want that anymore.
Right.
And so I'm really grateful that you responded to someone else's question about whether it's appropriate for our sponsor to name our character defects.
Right.
That just really reassured me that even
Yeah.
though I'm sponsorless at this moment,
Yeah.
that ultimately I'm actually really on track.
You are very much
Yeah.
on track. Yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
thank you.
Yeah. And I mean, use any language you want, but you're not behind. You're in process, and you are where you are. And
Okay.
you'll make progress based on your perception of the value of it and the experience of it. That goes for everybody. Yeah.
Yeah.
All
Meanwhile, I'm taking piano and studying music theory, which makes me super happy.
right. All right.
So it'll all get there. Thank you so much, Kurt.
Thank you. All right. Maybe we'll take a pause here. We're going to prepare to pray the 7-step prayer, and I'd like to make it a little meditative, perhaps more than your sponsor would do, certainly more than I personally experienced when I did my own 7-step prayer, but it was in sort of the chain reaction to finishing the 5th step, finishing the 6th step, and doing the 7th step in a 3-day sequence. Here, you may or may not have finished your 6th step. All right, that's not a requirement here, obviously. We're going with the rhythm of the book and the workshop, and I'm indicating the suggested approach based on the knowledge from the big book, as well as my own synthesis of my many experiences in going through the steps over about a 20-year period, so that you at least have the blueprint when you finish your 5th step as to how to approach your 6th step, how to approach your 7th step, and how to bring those to conclusion. I want to read to you the 7th step itself. Humbly asked him to remove our shortcomings. That word humbly is really critically important. And as a preparation, as you think about that, I would like you to think about the meditation as I'm going to use it from the big book on the promises of the 5th step, which I've read before, but not as a meditation. So I'm saying today, right now, look at your work that you've done up to this point, and you're very conscious of the most prominent shadow in your life, the most prominent shadow. Character defect, shortcoming, but there's a prominent one, the one that's just been very intransigent in terms of diminishing or removing in your life. And that's the one I want you to focus on in your consciousness, in your intention as we pray the 7-step prayer. But first, allow yourself to be comfortable where you're at right now. And think about the words from the page 75 on the step 5 promises. After you finish the step 5, once we have taken this step, we are delighted. We can look the world in the eye. We can be alone at perfect peace and ease. Our fears fall from us. We begin to feel the nearness of our Creator. We may have had certain spiritual beliefs, but now we begin to have a spiritual experience. the feeling that the drink problem, the addiction problem has disappeared will often come strongly. We feel we are on the broad highway, walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. There's that partnership. There's that companionship. There's that co-creation that Bill illustrates throughout the book. Walking hand in hand with the spirit of the universe. So I'm going to ask you to pray, as I did before, with the third step, to pray antiphonally. Antiphonal is a practice of prayer that we did in the monastery, where one group of monks would begin a prayer and the second group of monks would repeat that prayer that was spoken out loud. I will pray a word or a phrase, and then you will pray it out loud. And we'll go very patiently and slowly through the prayer, the 7-step prayer. This is the prayer from the book. It's on the screen. I call it the healing prayer because it's really asking to be healed of the shadows, the cracks in us, the defects in us, the shortcomings in us, those deficiencies in us that diminish the quality of our life. So place yourself obviously in the presence of the decision that you made in steps 2 and 3. You made a decision in steps 2 and 3 about power. What is that for you? Remember that decision and the relationship that you yearn to have, may have begun to experience even. My Creator,
My Creator,
I am now willing
I am now willing
that you should have all of me,
that you should have all of me,
good and bad.
good
and
and bad.
Pray that you now remove from me
Pray that you now remove from me
every single defect of character
Every single
defective character
that stands in the way
that stands in the way
of my usefulness
of my usefulness
to you and my fellows.
to you and my fellows.
Grant me strength
Grant me strength
as I go out from here
as
as I go out from here
to do your bidding.
to
to your bidding.
Amen.
Amen. Amen.
So now everybody's muted, and I'm going to ask you to pray it consecutively. We've prayed it antiphonally, back and forth, but now I'm going to pray it out loud. You're welcome to pray it out loud, all in unison, straight through the prayer. Try to be patient with it. Try to be thoughtful with it. Try to, in your mind's eye, in your imagination, be in the room, all in a circle, holding hands, praying this prayer. My Creator, I am now willing that you should have all of me, good and bad. I pray that you now remove from me every single defect of character that stands in the way of my usefulness to you and my fellows. Grant me strength as I go out from here to do your bidding. Amen. Wonderful. Thank you so much, everybody. And the reason I love that prayer is, and I use it every morning to conclude my morning meditation practice, is that last line. As I go out from here to do your bidding. What a launching pad for the day. As I go out from here to follow the inspirations that I received, the guidance that I received, the invitation that I received today, and the energy and the power to do it. That's how the step 11 ends, right? Knowledge of your will for me and the power to carry it out. I believe this 7-step prayer is a launching pad and an empowerment, as one of our participants mentioned. So I'm very open now to having any questions or concerns or further thoughts or comments on the 7th step and or what we just did. From my standpoint, it took a little training and that was just fine, but I think that I will continue to do that, unmuting for the antiphonal part. I think that worked from my standpoint, giving me the sense that we were all in the same room together.
I had an interesting experience with the 7th step with one particular character defect that I was asking to be removed. You know, as I've mentioned here before, I've had kind of a, you know, somewhat problematic relationship with my partner who feels I'm talking down to him at times when I don't really, I'm not aware that I was talking down to him. I wasn't intending to. And so I was praying for removal of talking down, you know, and arrogance, which is, you know, sort of part of that. Having said, you know, saying that prayer for a while, you know, at one point we were talking and I suddenly realized I was about to say something which I had to say very carefully. And I avoided talking down to him, whereas I would have. And so my experience is, in at least some cases, that just saying the prayer daily
Oh, yes.
can make you aware of a situation where you have that potential character defect springing into action.
Yes.
Time to restrain it.
Yes.
And I wish it would work for more.
Well, you know, that just reinforces my interpretation of prayer. Prayer doesn't change God. Prayer changes the prayer. And what you just witnessed was in yourself was that you became more conscious because of the prayer. Yeah, wonderful.
It's been a hard day, and this exercise tonight, it seems fitting. And it's also just kind of like a reminder that I still have a ways to go, right? And I feel like I've taken 2 steps back, that I was willing, and now I'm willing to be willing because something didn't go my way.
Yeah.
And as a dear friend of mine had lovingly allowed me to think of myself as resistant, you know, the easier and softer unwillingness. And my dear friend Wally has moved on from us today, and
Wow. Mm-hmm.
He is the person who showed myself and my boyfriend that love that we had literally never known. Like we have families that love us, we have, you know, we love each other, but that kind of love, that is that compassion, just for the sheer like compassion for another human, that I didn't understand.
Yeah.
And so reading this 7th step prayer tonight, you know, creator is a word that has new meaning to me after kind of going through this. I'm okay-ish to sit and be in my feelings, whatever they are. When you talk about a lantern, that's what Wally was. I guess I just I feel all kinds of things tonight, but grateful, very sad and heartbroken, and also like acutely aware that I'm only sad for myself, because I know that Wally's spiritual fitness is like on that next level. And that's, I think, what my lesson is in it tonight is that, remove those things in me blocking me so that I can, do your will. That's the message, right?
At the same time, lean in gently to the grief that you will experience. There's a loss here, it's real. And the counterbalance is the gratitude that you had the experience of this man.
So amazing.
Yeah, wonderful.
Amazing.
Yeah, thanks. And so the 8th step, just so that we are very clear about it, is made a list of all persons we had harmed. The key here is, of course, 6th step, 4th step, 2nd step. These are all naming steps. Here we are again, naming, making a list. But it's of harms done. There's probably in the exercise of the assignment, looking up some words. I'm not sure I had the word harm there to look up, but if I didn't, it should be there, because we need to know what it means. I had a hard time with the word harm because it sounds so gross. I mean, like, did I run somebody down or did I murder somebody? This is my interpretation. So I looked up the word originally, and then I chose the word diminish. How did I diminish their quality of life? Harm. And in the Way of Life document, I talk about that in the 4th column. Questions number 6 and 7, the ones I had you park information there. And we looked at harms possibly of physical, financial, emotional, mental, spiritual. Those are suggestions from the 12 and 12. But again, specificity is going to be the key to an effective amends process. Be specific about the harm. What I've recommended, because it's now my experience, is that people get a 3x5 cards, a deck of them. And so they put the name of the person on the card that they've harmed, or the institution. And they put the specific harm done. And they put the specific behavior down. The person, Bob, the man who tried to get me fired. How did I harm him? Well, I behaved poorly, and I resisted his suggestions, and I argued with him. So obviously I created stress in his life. So Bob, my argumentative, combative nature, that's my behavior. Number 3, I created emotional stress. There was no financial or physical or spiritual or mental. All right, I just radar sweep them. There's only one harm from my standpoint. And became willing to make amends to them all. That's a key here. I'll talk about that next Tuesday. On page 76, Bill actually opens up the conversation talking about both steps 8 and 9. It's unusual. He doesn't do it before this. He doesn't do it after this. I don't have any explanation for it. They're very separable steps. But perhaps he used them because 8th step is the list and 9th step is the amends. And as you read his commentary from page 76 to 83, I've indicated read it from the perspective of the harm and then reread it from the perspective of the amend. So it gives us some specific situations where there's an amend being made in a specific way it was made. But he also establishes by inference the principles. It's really important to get a sense of what's the principle here. Justice, right? Balance the scale. That's an image that came out of Chuck C's book, A New Pair of Glasses. Lady Justice standing there blind with a scale in her hand. Balance the scale. The scale's uneven when I've harmed somebody. He starts out on page 76. Now we need more action, without which we find that faith without works is dead. Well, that's a line from the epistle, the letter to James in the Christian scripture. It's a page and a half. It's one of the foundational letters for the Oxford group. Faith without works is dead. What it means is you can believe in God, but if your feet don't move accordingly, you're just an empty drum. In fact, a hypocrite. We've talked about that a lot, where your feet match your thoughts and your feelings. Let's look at steps 8 and 9. We have a list of all persons we have made and to whom we're willing to make amends. We made them when we took inventory. That line is the reason that I have that items number 6 and 7 in the 4th column. But I want to make clear, like I did when we were doing resentments, just because you have a resentment doesn't mean that you have a harm. And in the case where you might have harmed somebody doesn't mean you had a resentment. They're not correlated. They're very separate. I did lots of harm where I had no particular feeling at all toward anybody. There was no anger, there was no fear, there was no shame or guilt or whatever. There was just, you had it, I wanted it, I was dishonest, I was a thief. We subjected ourselves to a drastic self-appraisal. And now he slips over into the 9th step. I'm not going to do that in my unpacking. I'm going to spend 1 or 2 workshops on step 8. And then I'll spend 1 or 2 or 3 workshops on step 9, depending on our dialogue. Now we go out to our fellows and repair the damage, but that signals to us what the whole purpose of creating this list is. Now notice I gave you 3 items for your card: the name of the person or institution, the behavior that you did, and the specific harm that you caused. How did you diminish their life? When I'm giving this assignment to people, I don't give them the 4th item. I wait till they finish all of their cards on all of their people and institutions with those 3 items. And then I ask them, all right, now look in prayer at each one of those cards and come up with the 4th item. How are you going to repair it? What's the repair that is necessary? Amend has 2 connotations. Amend the Constitution, change. So it's a commitment that I'm going to change my behavior. That's why step 6 is so important to have done beforehand. You know what behavior you need to change. And the other part of amend is to repair. I'm going to mend. I'm going to bring healing. I can't change history. I cannot undo the damage I've done, but I have an opportunity to attempt to bring healing to the people. That's why forgiveness is such a relevant topic as we conclude with the 9th step. It starts with the 4th step. Forgiveness is a process that starts with the 4th step, where we're identifying our hurt and betrayal. And then it ends with the 9th step, where we take a look at what we need to change in order to be decent human beings, and what we need to do to repair the damage that we've done from our lack of principles up to that point. We attempt to sweep away the debris which has accumulated out of our effort to live on self-will. I mean, there's the resounding echo from page 62. Selfishness, self-centeredness is the root of the problem. It's what we looked at as the underlying cause and condition in step 4. And every other step after that, that's the spiritual malady, that's the unmanageability. and run the show ourselves. This next couple lines are just so important, and we're going to end with that. If we haven't the willingness to do this, we ask until it comes. Is that a familiar echo also? We've heard it since step one. Every time we approach a step, Bill warns us, you're powerless to do this step. You're powerless to make that decision. You're powerless to have that relationship. You're powerless to get rid of your anger and your fear and your shame. So you pray. This is a code we ask for prayer. What are we praying for? Just like step 6, we're praying for willingness. Willingness to be clear, willingness to tell the truth to ourselves, willingness to be specific, and willingness to change, and willingness to bring healing. And then this last line, it's in italics, the big book's way of highlighting. Remember, it was agreed at the beginning we would go to any length for victory over alcohol. Really? When did we agree to that? Remember, it was agreed at the beginning we would go to any length for victory over alcohol. That's the first half of the first step. Remember on page 58? And we've talked about it as part of the first 4 questions that we started the workshop with. Are you willing to go to any length, and what does it mean? But here I'm giving it even more power, more meaning, more application, page 58. If you have decided you want what we have, sobriety, if you have decided you want what we have, spiritual awakening, and are willing to go to any length to get it, page 58, it's the same words, dash, then you are ready to take certain steps. Oh, yeah, that was at the beginning. Before I took the 3rd step, I made a commitment to go to any length, which meant, my translation, I would do steps 4 through 9. Remember, it was agreed at the beginning, page 58, in anticipation of the 3rd step, that commitment, that I would go to any length for victory over alcohol. But now I want to point out the second use of that phrase on page 79, reminding in this first paragraph, reminding ourselves that we have decided to go to any length. Bill, you're beating a drum here, but it's a totally different context to find a spiritual experience. You see, Bill addresses step 1, the first half on page 76, and the second half on manageability on page 79. Alcohol on page 76, unmanageability on page 79. Well, why does he remind us twice about the depths that we're willing to go and the reasons that we're pursuing? Well, because step 9 is so hard. For me, it's the hardest step, to go out into the world, to reveal ourselves at the soul level with people who are not necessarily spiritual, maybe not even emotionally or mentally balanced. So I'm going to bring up the slides again for just a minute. We'll revisit them. Who did I diminish? This goes on your card. The person or the institution. What did I do? My behavior. What harm did I cause? The specific harm that I did. And what's the action that's necessary, both in terms of my change, amend my behavior, and in terms of repairing the damage, bringing healing to them. And we'll talk at some length about a lot of different angles on this. And of course, then the 5th question, which once you finish your cards, you will be asking, am I willing to repair the damage? And I'll talk more about that next week. So let's pray. We're coming to the home stretch with regard to the program of recovery, which I said is steps 1 through 9. The program of recovery. We finish the 9th step. Bill says we enter the world of the Spirit. Lord, make me a channel of your peace, that where there is hatred, I may bring love, that where there is wrong, I may bring the spirit of forgiveness, that where there is discord, I may bring harmony, that where there is error, I may bring truth, that where there is doubt, I may bring faith, that where there is despair, I may bring hope, that where there are shadows, I may bring light, that where there is sadness, I may bring joy. Lord, grant that I may seek rather to comfort than to be comforted, to understand than to be understood, to love than to be loved. For it is by self-forgetting that one finds. It is by forgiving that one is forgiven. It is by dying that one awakens to eternal life. Amen. I hope you've noticed in that prayer that forgiveness is alluded to at the beginning and at the end of that prayer. Huge issue, huge opportunity for healing. Thanks, everybody. Read pages 76 to 83 from the viewpoint of the 8th step. Begin maybe 1 or 2 cards just to have you feel for it. Read the 12 and 12, step 8. That would be if you've already done the big book reading. If not, then you could wait a week for that. I'm not trying to pile it on. I'm just saying that that would be the order of approach to understanding Bill's commentary and suggestions with regard to step 8. Thanks, everybody.